Disclaimer. In accordance with the ACA Code of Ethics, Section C, Subsection 8, Part A, Responsibility to Other Professionals, Personal and Public Statements, which states, when making personal statements in a public context, counselors clarify that they are speaking from their personal perspectives and that they are not speaking on behalf of all counselors or the profession, as much as I wish I was. As such, everything here should be taken as my personal views on the statements, behavior, and clinical views of anyone or any institution discussed in the contents of this video. Hi. So, we have a section in our Discord where we talk about what things could be segments. And I forget who did so. Whoever you are, I love you. You're a wonderful person. Put in the Discord that there was something I needed to watch. We're going to look at that in a minute. But first, I want to kind of set the stage. So, first I want to talk about the notion of what is a TERF. TERFs are what are called trans-exclusionary radical feminists. They believe this is a slur. They're incorrect. It is a derogatory term. Slurs hurt marginalized people. TERFs are not a marginalized group. In fact, often they wield political power over trans people to cause horrible things to happen. The most notable amount of this is that blockers can no longer be given to trans kids. And don't worry, that relates. The reason I bring this up, and I will be posting my arguments article that I made here, I have a little Google Doc here, that will have links in it, including videos and discussions around this, including a Vox article explaining their history and the normative bullshit they try to do. But that's not our big focus. I just want to explain the basics, right? Just basic understanding stuff. What I want to talk about is this. So we're going to use this as a really great opportunity to go through someone's written stuff and see how it lands for us. Inspired Teen Therapy by Sasha Ayad, Master's in Education, licensed professional counselor. Ooh, same as me, same degree. Though I don't see the NCC, dear. You didn't pay your MBCC money, which means you probably don't need continuing education. Weird. Anywho, let's go over this. Let's.
Gender identity. In this day and age, exploration of sexuality and gender is a normal part of a teenager's development and maturation. In therapeutic work with teens, I've observed some of the interesting ways in which this exploration can unfold. In 2014, I was a school counselor working with low-income and at-risk youth. There, I founded and lead our first GSA, or Gay Straight Alliance. It attracted students from multiple grade levels and the group was full of bright, creative, and engaged kids, truly inspired teens. I always tried to be watchful and nuanced when framing our discussions because of how sensitive and impressionable teenagers are. I quickly noticed that the kids were expressing a lot of confusion. Specifically, they got into animated conversations about the growing list of divergent, and sometimes bewildering, gender identities and sexualities being introduced by mainstream LGBT advocates. I remember one meeting in particular, a girl told the group about a set of bracelets she had seen online. Each one is a different color, worn to supposedly indicate what gender you are identifying as that day, so others know what pronouns to use when addressing you. She seemed puzzled and asked us, how exactly can you feel like a boy, or a demi-girl, or non-binary? Are they talking about emotions, like if I'm feeling kinda angry and aggressive, does that mean I'm identifying as a guy that day? Or like, what kind of clothes I am wearing? Other students chimed in, agreeing, and we had a thoughtful and interesting conversation about what it could mean to have a gender identity. We couldn't reach a satisfying conclusion, perhaps because gender identity is complex and multifactorial.
So just off the top of our head, what does this read as? Does this feel off to anyone else? Does anyone feel like this is really strange? So we'll go on down to here. And tell me if you hear any
There also seems to be a surge in the number of young people detransitioning, or stopping medical intervention and re-identifying with their birth sex. This population deserves much more attention from the mental health community. Based on my clinical observation with these clients, Identity reversals have usually occurred spontaneously, once underlying issues are resolved, same-sex attraction is embraced, or once a more nuanced reflection of identity is undertaken.
So already we've got her talking about detransitioners. We know, based on all data, that detransitioners are, by definition, a very small percentage of the trans community. And I've been very clear on this channel that people who are detransitioners should be supported, especially by the trans community, as these people are our kindred spirits. While they may have decided that they are no longer transgender, the simple fact of the matter is they do need our support. Here's the problem. The surge of number of young people detransitioning. I would like to see evidence on this, but she provides none. Notice that. She'll mention all these great things about experiences, but that's anecdotal. She won't show any evidence. The thing is that this is their point. The idea that detransitioners are this huge issue within the trans community, they're really not. The number of people that detransition is probably around 1%, and the number of people that detransition because they're no longer trans is actually a percent of that. A very small one, in fact. In fact, what we know based on data is that the major reason why people detransition is because, I don't know, they get harassed. Anyone here was here for the raid earlier of all the people coming in here and saying horrific shit and including telling me, trigger warning, to kill myself. Yeah, people detransition for those reasons. And as such, one of the things that we need to be very clear about is this idea that this language is full of dog whistles, TERF dog whistles to be exact. Essentially, this person talks about the overrepresentation of developmental conditions such as autism and Asperger's. Again, this can be described and explained by better tools and better sensitivity in those tools. And then also discuss the way in which, let me see if I can find it, or does she avoid it in this one? So she says a lot of flowery bullshit language about trans people, but maybe this isn't that bad. Maybe she's not a TERF. Although it's interesting, she's part of the GSA, and we can talk about how the LGB without the T folks work, but GSA was the appropriate term at one point, so we'll give her that. And then we get to this. The inspired teen about. There's Sasha. She's a cutie. Sasha is a licensed professional counselor who works in private practice and has treated adolescents for over 10 years. Her work focuses on teens and young adults struggling with issues of gender dysphoria and gender identity. She became interested in the sharp rise in teenagers who declared trans identities for the first time during adolescence. She discovered through working with hundreds of families that teens were developing gender dysphoria only after adopting a trans identity. Do you guys hear it? Do you hear the whistle? She questions the practice of medical transition for children and teenagers, and her clinical work focuses on developing appropriate, least invasive first talk therapies. There it is. So let's be very clear. This woman is a TERF. By all rights, her work is to stop children from transitioning. And the fact is, she seems to have friends. So there is for example, the Society of Evidence-Based Gender Medicine, although I haven't looked at the actual, veracity of these particular claims, but again, they make arguments such as hormonal and surgical interventions can lead to irreversible physical changes, medical complications and drug side effects, surgical complications. Now, again, who's anyone been paying attention? Let's be super clear. The only thing kids are given up until about age 15 is puberty blockers. Puberty blockers are safe, effective, and we've been using them for 30, 40 years for other reasons as well, including people who had thyroid issues or girls who had incredibly painful periods. These things have been used for so fucking long. Lifelong cross-sex hormones. Hormone therapy for usually adolescents doesn't begin at the earliest at age 16. And usually 15 if that can happen, maybe. But again, they misstate this. We can actually look over here at the standards for the WPATH standards of guidelines, right? So not only is they have to go through an entire referral process after working with a qualified mental health professional like myself, and they have to also go through and have the following things. The letter has to have very specific guidelines in it, such as the client's general identifying characteristics, results of the client's psychosocial assessment, including any diagnoses, the duration of the referred health professional's relationship with the client, including types of evaluation and therapy or counseling to date, an explanation that criteria for hormone therapy have been met, and a brief description of the clinical rationale for supporting the client's request for hormone therapy. A statement that informed consent has been obtained from the patient, or in case they're parents. A statement that the referring health professional is available for coordination of care and welcome to a phone call to establish this. So notice that. If people are actually doing their fucking jobs, what they're actually doing is going through and meeting with another person. So that means this kid has a bare minimum of 2 highly educated professionals, if they're operating by these guidelines, which they should be. And by definition, doing so means that this is not just something done lightly. This requires, hold on a second. No gifts in stream chat. Thank you. But I did think it was funny. So that means not only is this kid working with 1, 2 professionals, but also quite possibly 1 to 2 parents. Those 2 parents, or 1, have to be informed. They have to give consent on the part of the child because children cannot give consent. And as such, you have 3, possibly 4 adults at the bare minimum making this decision. This is the process that transphobes say is streamlined. As a person who's been a part of this process numerous times, this is utter hogwash. So we come back to her and her nonsensical society. So again, they say mastectomy or breast implants. I do not know of any adolescent other than maybe some basic case examples that are absolutely outside of WPATH standards that this happened to. Same thing with removing of ovaries or testes, hysterectomies, surgical removal and revision of sexual organs. Again, let's be very clear. The idea that these surgeries are happening to children is nonsensical. Kids who are maybe 17 or 18 could theoretically have a surgery, but even a 17-year-old would still require parents' permission and the agreement of at least the 2 professionals, if not more, that I specifically mentioned earlier. They say this is based on a single Dutch study. This is not true. Multiple studies have found associations between these things. Again, high rates of post-surgery suicide. Could that be because of like negative social interactions, or are you guys just going to leave that out? Right? And again, they bring up this one Dutch study that had problems with it. All right, fair enough, but nothing else? You guys aren't going to go over the whole literature review? You're just going to give some very cute little things and show a nice, cute kid on there? All right. Which brings us to Barnaby Dixon. Barnaby J. Dixon is a lovely gentleman who designs puppets. You'll notice up in here in the corner that he met with Sasha. I don't know why. He seems like a nice enough person, though you'll see he's in red here, which means he got marked with Shinigami I as a transphobe. Whether he is or not is really irrelevant. The reality of the fact is that he meets with people who have some very strange ideas, including Sasha. So we're going to talk to her. Oh, by the way, just so you're aware, one of the people that she also met with is this guy, Benjamin Boyce. Benjamin Boyce is an agreeable contrarian who posts things such as, let's see here, I don't know, inspired teen therapy, so a discussion about trans kids again, attacking trans kids, liberating women from the patriarchy, so the antidote for supposed culture work is actually good culture, so again, he's talking about TERF points, he's meeting with her, apparently did this a couple times, right? Like, this is just someone platforming a TERF, and he seems pretty conservative himself. By the way, I didn't mark this. He was already pre-marked. In fact, their whole video, and we'll get to this in a minute, we are not listening to this.
Hello, this is Benjamin Boy.
Shut up. So, what they talk about is this, with Lisa Littman and Sasha Egad. Rapid-Onset gender dysphoria. Shinigami I is a extension for Vivaldi or for Chrome that allows you to tell whether someone is transphobic or trans-friendly, and you can mark people yourself. They then aggregate them to make things as safe as possible. So, Lisa Littman, I believe this is the lady who Vosh discussed, but maybe I'm wrong on that. No, that's a different lady. Anywho, We're going to look at this. This is Dixon talking to her in his philosophish
or
thing.
medically transition the child.
Right? So we're going to listen to her, and again, trigger warning for TERF speak, but I just want to go over this and see what your thoughts are.
So I find this to be problematic because we know that identity fluctuates over time. So for example, some people who are struggling or insisting they're the other gender in childhood will resolve that gender dysphoria as they get older. Can I share an example about that?
Oh yeah, hit me.
So already she's absolutely full of shit. The fact is the gender dysphoria kids feel, if they are genuinely trans, that is, they have been diagnosed appropriately and met with professionals, the actually rate is incredibly low. We know this demonstrably. The actual thing that she's referencing, like every fucking conservative in TERF does, is one particular study that was looking at gender nonconforming behaviors and not specifically trans kids. So her idea that most of them will come out of it, one, is false. Two, even if it was true, that would mean that the WPATH standards would be appropriate because this would be caught by professionals, because they would set up the appropriate roadblocks necessary to be able to make sure this kid is trans so that the kids that genuinely still have gender dysphoria can begin that process and not go through the wrong fucking puberty. But again, she doesn't give a shit about the kids. She gives a shit about the politics.
We did, please.
Okay, so I have a friend and colleague named Stella O'Malley. She's actually the co-host of a podcast that we run together. And she had a gender issue as a child. Now, at the time, she was not taken to any doctors, but she insisted that she should have been a boy for many years in her childhood. She dressed as a boy, she called herself a boy, and around puberty, she started to feel very distressed. Now, ultimately for Stella, the difficulty of puberty helped her realize that biology is bigger than she is, and she actually ended up outgrowing her.
So what I'm hearing here is that someone fed her the philosophical line that biology is more important than your identity and caused this girl to, I don't know, stuff it. Yeah. Let's be very clear. The thing she's referencing, oh, by the way, this is, let me see if I can just click on this real quick. Where is it? I believe someone sent this to me. It was real bad. Oh, here it is. Rethink me. Rethink identity, medicine, ethics. Part of her and another person. Our viewpoint, what we do. So just as a side note, these people advocate for gender dysphoria therapeutic model coming in April. Dysphoric, a 4-part series. By the way, Dysphoric is a 4-part series on YouTube. You can watch it. You'll vomit. It's basically just conservative and TERF talking points. Hell, this is their opening synopsis. In this world where misogyny is rampant and womanhood is commodified, being female comes at a cost. Corporate capitalize on women's bodies, blurring the lines between biological sex and profiteering for the empirically untested pseudo-science of queer theory. So again, no one is basing transing on queer theory. These are just this is literally like, this is just fucking propaganda. And these people are just a fucking hate think tank. That's all they are. Same as these motherfuckers. These are people trying to stop kids from being happy. So let's talk about their major argument, because this is their major argument. Rapid onset gender dysphoria. What the fuck is even that? Well, let's ask someone who's actually studied it and talked about it. Julia Serrano, one of the coolest ladies in the world, wrote The Whipping Girl. Everything you need to know about rapid onset gender dysphoria. ROGD also seems scientish on the surface. After all, in a 4-word technical sounding term, seriously, who but scientists could have come up with such an esoteric sounding name? And I can easily imagine, by the way, she's a biologist, and a trans woman. But they'll probably say that's invalid and that she's biased, despite the fact that's an ad-hom. I can easily imagine how lay people may have come across this term in the Globe and Mail, National Post, and National View, all right-leaning papers, all of which have recently published ROGD op-eds, might have mistaken this for an authentic medical condition or diagnosis, even though it's not rooted in actual science. So, what is this term?
Zena Jones from Gender Analysis has written 2 excellent articles chronicling the origins of the phrase rapid-onset gender dysphoria. Basically, it originated in July 2016 on 3 blogs, 4thwavenow.com, transgendertrend.com, and youthtranscriticalprofessionals.org, that have a history of promoting anti-transgender propaganda. The term was intended to explain some parents' observations that 1, their children came out as transgender seemingly suddenly, often during puberty, and 2, their children also had trans-identified peers and interacted with trans-themed social media. Unfortunately, it's not uncommon for reluctant parents to presume that their child has adopted a trans, or LGBTQ and more generally, identity as a result of undue influence from other children and/or outside sources, hence the recurring accusations about transgender agendas, peer pressure, and trans identities supposedly being trendy. ROGD takes this presumption one step further. It asserts that any gender dysphoria these adolescents experience represents an entirely new phenomenon that is wholly distinct from the gender dysphoria that transgender people have historically experienced, e.g., as described in the DSM-5, the OPATH standards of care, and many decades of past research.
So, immediately we can see that this is full of shit. This is an idea that was come about on multiple things. Transgender's Trend, which is an absolute trans hatred, right? Youth Trans Critical Professionals, same. And Fourth Wave Now, I actually was just looking at them. They're horrific. But essentially what this argues is that it's contagion theory. Kids go online and see the transes, and they go, but I want to be the transes. And then they decide they're transes. And then they get these surgeries and these hormone blockers, and then they're put on hormones, and before they know it, they're a trans person. That's not how that works. I've talked about the WPATH standards before, and unless someone's is doing some form of malpractice, as we talked about with the 60 Minutes sketch, the reality of the fact is that that doesn't happen. And let's be super clear, contagion theory is bullshit. Nobody questions their gender or thinks about their gender differently unless they already were having those thoughts. Let's give an example.
Stress, and she's quite happy as a woman. She's married and has children now, but she's a great example of a person who has struggled with their gender but had that resolve on its own with time. And I might be gay, right? We wouldn't want to challenge them. We would just want to say, great, we accept you for who you are, and move right along. Thank you for having me, Phil. I love the way you're moving through the water so naturally. Nice moves.
Thank you. You know, I love the way you...
Shut up.
By our environment and influenced by other people. So I worked with autism for some time, and I also worked with survivors of domestic violence. Therapists use to diagnose patients. And this term is called gender dysphoria.
Okay, so can you elaborate on what...
I'll put this link in chat. I can't go through this. I will talk about what I did see, though. Thanks to Hanging Wednesday, one of our members. So look, I don't know who Barney Dixon is. He has cool puppets. I don't know why he's platforming a TERF, but let's talk about her. If you go through this entire video, which I'm not going to do on stream, her arguments are textbook definitions of what's called la logique de Choutron, or kettle logic, which is when one uses multiple arguments to defend a point, but the arguments are inconsistent with one another. She also appeals to false authority, bad studies, and the McNamara fallacy, as she is citing research that has poor methodology and is transphobic by every measure, as well as focuses on quantitative aspects of the research rather than the millions of trans voices that have spoken out about this. So, in this video, and I'm just going to go over what Hanging Wednesday pointed out because I think it's fucking brilliant. 1. All the young people I have worked with who didn't have gender dysphoria until they learned about gender dysphoria, but my podcast co-host went so far as to socially transition in a time period, and this is what she talked about just earlier. Now she's a happy moment who's been... By the way, the contradiction here is this is a false dilemma fallacy, as the idea that not having gender dysphoria before knowledge of the term isn't demonstrated, nor is it the only option in the situation, as it could be the person is experiencing depression, anxiety, etc. that is the dysphoria, but the person lacks awareness of the connection to gender or what that there is a phrase for their experience. The notion that this person is being somehow contaminated by their social engagements is just functionally incorrect. This is not how anything works. And again, it's the idea of influence makes you bad or makes you one of the transes. The issue with this argument is that there are a million ways we can talk about this. Perhaps people were having this experience, and by doing certain things, they became aware of this. Or it could be they had things that were dysphoric but didn't fall under the normal terms, such as gender dissonance. That's a very real thing. Derealization, that's another. This is something that's being studied right now. The idea that because they didn't think they had dysphoria until they came across dysphoria, I have an actual better argument for that. And it's really simply this. By definition, all that explains this in a much better and much more pro-trans way is representation. We talked about this before with Matt Walsh, the fucking idiot. But the thing is that this is the same issue. TERFs and conservatives think the same. Weird. But this is their issue. By definition, by just complete definition, there are more trans kids in Zoomers and more in millennials because trans people have become more part of the public discourse. Back when I was a kid in the 90s, goddamn, I'm old, the reality of the fact is that trans people were basically a joke, a monster, and a serial killer. That's it. Or a victim on a crime show. But you get to the late aughts and you start getting shows that have some trans people or even mention us or discuss us. Maybe not in the best ways, but they're starting to be a thing. Or a sex worker. Thank you, Tiamat. But then you get later and you get things like Orange is the New Black, the beautiful and wonderful Laverne Cox. You get other ways in which people come out. Sometimes great, sometimes not the greatest people, but we're glad for their transition. I'm looking at you, Caitlyn Jenner. Silence of the Lambs, please watch the Lindsay Ellis video for the love of God. Anyway, but here's the reality. I have a much, much more likely and Occam's razory argument for this, and it's just simply representation. By seeing kids, my kids going out, seeing trans people being talked about, they get to ask themselves a particular question. That question being, what is my gender? Think about it. This is actually a horrifying thought, but if you think back through the annals of history, just throughout the whole of human history, how many people were trans? And for whatever reason, they were absolutely unable to transition because it wasn't actually part of their culture. It wasn't part of the way they did things. It wasn't the way in which they interacted with the world. And so the problem we get into is that this woman is essentially arguing for, I don't know, she's arguing for essentially preventing kids from transitioning when all data shows that this is demonstrably helpful to them. We know what this does. We know what happens when social factors are affecting them. We know that very clear from the human rights campaign stuff we've talked about. Let's move on. We don't validate material claims that clients make about themselves, with the example being the 10-foot tall thing. Thank you, Hanging Wednesday. And then noting that a claim about an experience of masculinity and femininity is internal and subjective claim, and then nonsense about therapists validating this client and saying that they are the other sex. She keeps switching what she's talking about to make her case. Again, I'll post this in the link, or in the discussion. But here's the thing. I've seen this part, and the fact of the matter is, guess what this is, folks? Hanging Wednesday's argument was sex being a material/physical claim about the other person. If we are validating the felt experience of the client as being gender nonconforming or trans, then we are not validating a material claim because we are not talking about their physical body. If we did take that felt experience of non-congruence between their assigned gender and their physical body and tell them that they were the other sex, that wouldn't make sense and wouldn't be in line with material reality, as well as be against the fact that they're experiencing dysphoria. This is literally her confusing the mind. Like, this is literally like what is it called? The Whitman fallacy, where if you can't see it, it's not real. Also, the contradiction here is a false equivalence and an equivocation fallacy. She is either intentionally or unintentionally conflating issues. Right? This woman, by all rights, is absolutely repugnant. That's my personal take, by the way. I'm not speaking about her in a professional way, nor do I want any harm or negative backlash to come towards her. I just believe that she's acting in an incredibly unethical way. That is my personal take, and I'm going to keep saying it. It might have been Nightbot deep dive. Sorry about that. But here's the thing. So this woman's connected to essentially a conspiracy theory documentary. She interacts with alt-writers such as Benjamin Boyce, talking to such wonderful people about, I don't know, getting rid of diversity and inclusion. You notice all the red? Again, I didn't do this. But again, there's a lot of people talking about this guy, and a lot of it seems like, he's on a Mumsnet. You mean the transphobic site? Very cool. Okay, very very pog. So this is the thing. For some reason, there are YouTubers, unbeknownst or very beknownst, choosing to platform this woman. And the issue with this woman is that she is a TERF. She is touting pseudo-science and going against genuine medical and psychological consensus. The WPATH standards are there to protect children. This idea that we're sort of streamlining and just throwing kids into the grinder is nothing more than absolute nonsense. This has never been actually demonstrated other with appeals to emotion. Think of the children. I am, bitch. Also, it's also usually argued with like horrific imagery, again, appeals to emotion, or it's brought up in some very real issues. How do I want to say this? Every example they have is an example of malpractice. Let's go back to the 60 Minutes article. Remember, in the 60 Minutes article, there was a direct description about the fact that there was a girl who had at 18 gone and got hormones, and then for some reason was allowed surgery 4 months later? Guess what? 4 months on hormones aren't going to do shit. The fact that she got a mastectomy means she was dealing with a butcher. Trans women literally work together to avoid those motherfuckers. Anyone who doesn't believe me, go to trans surgeries on fucking Reddit. Jesus Christ. The idea that kids are just being forced sex changes is not fucking true. It's just not. And the idea here that she's worked with autistic kids. Okay, I want to know in what capacity. Just saying. But I'll take her at good faith there and say she counseled women and children impacted by domestic abuse and sex violence. Again, kind of a TERF. And again, if we're going to do an appeal on appeal of authority, right, expert authority, she has a BS in psychology and an MED in counseling psychology. Cool. Great. Love that for her. I, on the other hand, have a Master's of Arts in the College of Education. I also have a master's degree in counseling. I also follow the WPATH standards. I'm also a trans woman who transitioned after finishing grad school. I know exactly what this process entails. So she's part of a group that hates kids and wants to pretend to use evidence-based practice to stop transition. She's part of a group that's a fucking think tank. She supports her podcast, I guess, supports this god-awful fucking documentary. And she touts a science that is nonsensical. Specifically that
while ROGD is scientifically specious, the concept serves a very clear practical purpose. It provides reluctant parents with an excuse to disbelieve and disaffirm their child's gender identity, under the presumption that it is merely a byproduct of ROGD. It also provides a rationale for restricting their child's interactions with transgender peers and access to trans-related
information as such. As such, things are imagined the cause of the condition, thus the contamination bullshit. Right? Goes in them for things, talks about this. Is this really a new phenomenon, like this bitch argues on her goddamn website?
Is this really a new phenomenon? No, it is not. Within trans health circles, it's been well established that trans people may become gender dysphoric and or come out about being transgender at any age. For instance, in the current WPATH Standards of Care, published in 2011, the section entitled Phenomenology in Adolescence explicitly states, yet many adolescents and adults presenting with gender dysphoria do not report a history of childhood gender nonconforming behaviors. Dr. 1988, Landon, Waylander, and Lundstrom, 1998. Therefore, it may come as a surprise to others, parents, other family members, friends, and community members, when a youth's gender dysphoria first becomes evident in adolescence.
Yeah, so if you've ever watched debates between Demon Mama and a few other fucking people, including that one like conservative guy that thinks he's the like new Rush Limbaugh, forget his fucking name. But the fact is that he was touting the whole thing about like kids basically not being trans, like the majority of them not doing this. This is what they're talking about. It's the fact that they're conflating a study about spilling my shit. Gender nonconformity. So angry, I'm just throwing drinks. Mad Jess is mad. Hope I didn't damage something. Whatever. Don't fucking care. Let's do this. So the idea being is that when you're looking at this, that whole study they keep referencing that says that a bunch of kids that were gender nonconforming stayed their same gender doesn't even matter here, because a majority of the kids that came out, according to this data, never showed gender nonconforming behaviors. Again, this is nonsense.
And as Zena Jones points out, the DSM-5 diagnosis for gender dysphoria, published in 2013, contains similar language. Late-onset gender dysphoria occurs around puberty or much later in life. Some of these individuals report having had a desire to be of the other gender in childhood that was not expressed verbally to others.
True.
Others do not recall any signs of childhood gender dysphoria. For adolescent males with late-onset gender dysphoria, parents often report surprise because they did not see signs of gender dysphoria during childhood.
I'll even go one step further for y'all. So if you look at this thing they said, so what is this? They're calling it childhood onset gender dysphoria has been shown to high rates of natural resolution. Again, I don't know where they got this data, so I have no idea, but I wanted to show you something. Notice the one they're most worried about. 12 plus right there, girls, right there. The huge amount of girls. So again, if you've suddenly become aware trans men are a thing, because trans men are made, just like non-binary people, invisible to the overall culture. God, I love you, trans men. Never change. The thing is that, of course, if they become aware that transition happens and they had gender dysphoria, that's a thing. The fact is that this whole explosion they keep referencing and saying we're transing the kids can be explained by representation, as well as the simple fact that we have words for things. Remember, fascists like Newspeak, they want to limit the vocabulary for the purposes of making sure that people don't have language for what they're experiencing. This woman isn't helping kids with their gender identity. She's obfuscating it. And so the problem being is that this is absolutely nonsensical. All of it is.
There is nothing inherently erroneous or illegitimate about a rapid onset of gender dysphoria. Some trans people experience an epiphany during which all the clues and puzzle pieces suddenly come together,
True.
And they finally realize that they are transgender. This is what happened to me when I was 11, as I describe in Chapter 5 of Whipping Girl and Chapter 13 of Outspoken. But the above passages, both of which describe parents experiencing surprise, illustrate that the word rapid in ROGD doesn't necessarily refer to the speed of gender dysphoria onset, especially in the many cases where the child keeps their experiences to themselves for a time before sharing them with parents.
I'll be better.
Rather, what's rapid about ROGD is the parent's sudden awareness and assessment of their child's gender dysphoria, which, from the child's standpoint, may be long-standing and thoughtfully considered.
I'm literally dealing with this with clients. Like, I've dealt with clients where there's a legitimate issue where they have been experiencing just in a horrible place in their skin, and they just can't stand it, but they never had words for it, or they never wanted to share it because it was inappropriate. If you have conservative family members, for example, and they're like, don't be one of the queers. Well, guess what? You're not going to do that. You're not going to actually in any way, shape, or form deal with or engage with any of this stuff. You're going to just hide it, bury it, conceal, don't feel, Elsa. And what's going to keep happening on and on and on and on again is that these parents are going to suddenly fucking be surprised and be like, oh no, it's rapid onset gender dysphoria, just like that woman, just like the old fortune teller told me. These people are monsters. Let me be very clear. And I don't mean trans people, shut up people that are trying to take me out of context. The fact is that what this woman does, and just like all the people she works with, these people are the people that are my fucking enemies. There are so many bad actors in mental health. And I'm going to be really clear. If you bring your kid to somebody like this because you can't handle them being trans, that is fucking child abuse in my eyes. Also, if you are a parent and you are genuinely concerned about your kid's transition, come and bring them to someone like me. I have worked with kids who have figured out that they are not trans. It's rare, but they do happen. But if your goal is to be genuinely good faith and understand exactly where they're coming from and really hear them out, you can have some really amazing conversations. I had a wonderful conversation with one teen recently with their parents, and it went swimmingly. The parents were more excited than the kid was. It was fucking pog. The fact is that this isn't suddenly a giant change. It's that kids are becoming more aware of the fact that they have options, and Zoomers aren't as necessarily fucking like emotionally constipated as the older generations. Yeah, the correct response to learn a new thing is to learn a new thing, not aggress at it. Exactly. It's the fear of the unknown. All parents that get upset about their kids being trans prove is that they're transphobic and they just never had a reason to bring it up. Full stop. So a couple things just as a bring thing, real quick. So if you have a chance, and I'm not going to tell anyone to go watch anything, but I want to remind you that IMDb exists, and there are some very, really bad reviews on here, though a TERF transphobic documentary, 1 out of 10. That's a TERF documentary. Most of the participants are feminists who think that women are in danger because trans lobby. Most of them think that gender dysphoria is an epidemic. That's problematic. I think there may be something interesting, but they have to talk about it in another way about detransition experiences. The result is a TERF documentary. It is not okay for me. Agreed. Super agreed. So if you happen to have an IMDb account and you watch this, I think you should give a fair recommendation, fair rating, right? That's what the system's there for. Give it a fair rating. Tell people really clear, like what's going to happen is you look at this and you realize, oh, okay, I have power. I have to say something. I think that's a good idea. So in addition, list of fallacies, covered what this is. So what are my ethical concerns here? You know me, folks. I like to keep it real. So in the ACA Code of Ethics from 2014, there are 3 ethical concerns I will bring up. There are more, but these are the ones I feel the strongest about. They are Section C, Subsection 7, Part A, Scientific Basis for Treatment. When providing services, counselors use techniques, procedures, modalities that are grounded in theory and or have an empirical or scientific foundation. Section C, Subsection 7, Part B, Development and Innovation. When counselors use developing or innovative techniques, procedures, and modalities, they explain the potential risks, benefits, and ethical considerations of using such techniques, procedures, and modalities. Counselors work to minimize potential risks or harms when using these techniques, procedures, or modalities. And finally, Section C, Subsection 7, Part C. Counselors do not use techniques, procedures, and modalities when substantial evidence suggests harm, even if such services are requested. So, let's explain. Subsection 7, Part A is an issue of this. All the data points to the fact that there is demonstrable good in helping kids be who they are. And the fact of the matter is again, hormone blockers, while yes, there is some questions around bone density, they seem to be very rare and a very low side effect. Can we remind ourselves that we put kids on fucking Ritalin for school? We literally give them speed. Like, trust me, I know, I'm on it. The fact is that like, we give kids drugs all the time, including antipsychotics that have long-term effects. And you're bitching about potential bone density issues for demonstrable effects of dysphoria that can lead to and up to including TW suicide? Are you fucking joking me? Where was all the concern champing at earlier? No. These people are not based in science. I'm not going to go through everything here. Maybe we'll do a research stream later, but you can see this. Literally, if you want a really good version of it, here's Florence Ashley's talk about rapid onset and gender dysphoria. Right? She's fucking brilliant.
This URL. The Sociological Review Monographs.
Nope, not that one. I want it to go down. Oh, you're making me do it on the paper? You bastard. Oh, this isn't that long. Let's fucking go.
Conclusion: more panic than epidemic. Proponents of ROGD paint themselves as a marginal group speaking truth to power. In sharp contrast, the theory has spread like wildfire since being coined a few years ago. making its way into national newspapers and being cited by RIT-ERS, scholars, and interest groups with a long history of hostility towards transgender people. As I hope to have shown, ROGD's concerning claims hide a barren empirical wasteland. Instead of a legitimate scientific hypothesis, ROGD is best understood as an attempt to mobilize scientific language to circumvent mounting evidence in favor of gender affirmation. Durwood et al., 2017, Lopez et al., 2017, Olson et al., 2016, Telfer et al., 2018, Turbin et al., 2020, what we know,
So
ND,
many studies.
by positing a new clinical subgroup to whom the existing data do not apply. Since gathering new data takes years, this discursive strategy can in turn be used to justify opposing gender affirmation and pressuring youth to identify with the gender they were assigned at birth, a practice akin to conversion therapy. Despite the facial neutrality of scientific language, the trans-antagonistic roots of ROGD are easily unearthed. Interposed between claims like identifying as the opposite gender is not normal, she was female, and would never be otherwise, parents of ROGD kids, ND, and I mean, you can't change your sex, right? It's scientifically impossible, McDonald, 2017, proponents of ROGD's self-narratives as accepting but concerned individuals cannot but be suspect.
Correct. This is concern trolling. These are people pretending they give a shit about kids when really what they do is hate trans people, and they realize the bathroom bill thing doesn't work anymore. The fact of the matter is that if you want, I'll put this in the fucking description, but WPATH standards are real fucking clear. There are ways in which we try to protect kids as best we can. And if someone doesn't abide by these, I absolutely think they should be nailed to the wall for it. Because I don't want to make a wrong decision about a kid. Let me be very clear about this. But I will link also both this article by Julia Serrano and by Florence Ashley. By the way, follow both of them on Twitter. They're fucking great. But the fact of the matter is that this is nonsense. This is nonsense. The idea of rapid onset gender dysphoria has nothing behind it. Just like this.
But isn't there a research study on ROGD? To date, only one research study on ROGD has been published. It is authored by Lisa Littman and appeared in PLOS One a few days ago. Note, that link takes you to the original paper. It has since undergone revision/correction, as described and linked to at the end of this essay. There are numerous problems with this study, as Zinnia Jones and Bryn Tannehill detailed in their critiques of an earlier rendition of this same study back when it appeared as a non-peer-reviewed poster in the Journal of Adolescent Health. For starters, this was not a study of the children themselves, but rather their parents, who were instructed to fill out a 90-question survey.
Here we go.
About their adolescent and young adult children. What's even more troubling is how this sample set of parents was selected. Recruitment information with a link to the survey was placed on 3 websites where parents and professionals had been observed to describe rapid onset of gender dysphoria, Fourth Wave Now, Transgender Trend, and Youth Transcritical Professionals. In other words, this supposed study of ROGD is entirely based on the opinions of parents who frequent the very same 3 blogs that invented and vociferously promote the concept of ROGD. Frankly, this is the most blatant example of begging the question that I have ever seen in a research paper. The fact that Littman didn't even bother to post a link to the survey on any of the many other online groups for parents of trans kids, i.e., ones that do not push an ROGD agenda, and who thus might have very different assessments of their adolescent trans children, strongly suggests that she purposefully structured her study to confirm the former parents' assumptions, rather than objectively assess the state of their children.
Wow. Wow, that's a big deal. So she specifically set this up to go along with their ideas, their beliefs, rather than gender a wider lens. Who's in this little thing? I wonder. I don't know. Let's see. Sasha and Stella answer questions. Let's see here. Let's go over to William Malone, Julia, Sasha Yad. Oh, hey, it's a friend from the podcast, also from Ireland. Hey, Patricia, you should say hi. No Littman? Oh, I was hoping. Wait, real quick. So this woman that we've been talking about this whole time is touting research by a woman who basically made a piece of research based on nonsense about parents' already biases.
All of this would explain why LiQWYD published her article in PLOS1, rather than a more respectable journal. PLOS1's publishing philosophy is quite different from other research journals in that, as an online open access journal, they focus on quantity over quality. While they review the more technical aspects of each paper they publish, a fairly low bar to clear for an article analyzing an online survey, they are generally hands-off with regards to subjective concerns such as which experiments the authors choose to carry out, and their interpretation of the results. Another journal would likely press LiQWYD to use a more representative sample, provide concrete evidence that ROGD is distinct from regular old gender dysphoria, and more thoroughly explore other possible explanations for the results, as any spurious or unreasonable claims made by LiQWYD would reflect poorly on the journal itself. PLOS1, on the other hand, is not concerned with such matters, as they believe that the importance and relevance of an article should be determined by the scientific community post-publication, via debates and citations. Within scientific circles, researchers are well aware of this, and will take any claims made in a PLOS1 article with a grain of salt, if not multiple grains. Note, I have subsequently elaborated on this point here. Unfortunately, the lay public, not being aware of this, will likely take this study as proof that ROGD is a scientifically validated concept. Even though it isn't.
Yeah. Because lay people don't understand how research works or the politics therein. Remember, folks, mental health is political. The fact of the matter is that they won't know the fact that the only place this was posted was a fucking journal that basically lets anyone post there because they want debates. This is the same fucking philosophy that goddamn dominated YouTube back in 2016 with people like Sargon of Akkad and fucking Thunderfoot wanting to debate bro everybody. Fuck me. LiQWYD's research is literally there to validate parents' fears and to attack trans people because they realized the bathroom bill thing didn't work because they couldn't find any examples. They look for random examples of people who are transgender and then detransitioned, and then they try to pull them in. You don't believe me? Give me a second. Let's see, where did I put that? I'm not seeing it. There was a really lovely article. Let me look at my bookmarks real quick. There was a really lovely article that included a trans man who was essentially pulled into TERF circles. And yeah, no, they're a fucking cult. I'll say it. That's exactly what the fuck this is. That is not what I wanted to do. So, let me make this abundantly fucking clear. The fact of the matter is that this woman is doing demonstrable harm. And I think that if anyone is working in her state or has taken their kids to her, I think it would be in their best interest to contact that state or that country or whatever their sense is for their licensure, because I believe that this should be discussed. To me, these people are a threat. They are a threat to trans people. They are a threat to ethics. They are a threat to genuinely the world being better. And they do it out of the sense of concern trolling. They have doubts. But the fact is their doubts don't come from research. They come from disgust. If you actually scratch beneath the surface of these people, the reality, the fact is that you come to the realization is it's not that they really are that concerned. It's that they want every excuse humanly possible to hate trans people. And if they can stop kids from transitioning, they know that they hurt us, because the reality, the fact is kids that don't transition are more likely to not transition later in life because they're going to stuff that shit, or at least maybe transition later. Or they might just commit suicide, and transphobes fucking love that. My point with all this is very simple. This is decided science. The plurality of data shows that gender-affirming care, hormone blockers, and the like are not only safe, but necessary. And I think that this has been covered fairly decent here. I'm going to put all of these links in the description. But Does anyone have any questions? Does anyone have any thoughts on this? To me, this is horrifying. Now, I'm going to state really clearly, I, again, don't want anyone to harass this person or bother them on Twitter. I just want to make it very clear that this is horrific, and we need to start genuinely kind of pushing back on this. In mental health or otherwise, these people should not be allowed to congregate in this way because what they're doing is harmful. This is no different than the critical therapy assholes, right? It's just another form of alt-righter. This woman can claim she's a fucking feminist, but she's not a feminist by any means, except for maybe the TERF kind. Yeah, I'm not finding that link. If I find it, I'll put it in there. But it's actually the story of somebody going through that process, and it's freaking horrifying. I think I posted it in one of my other servers. So, Zena, if you could find that, that would be rad. Could you look for the article about the trans man who was formerly part of the TERF movement that was convinced not to transition for a good part of their life? It should be in the other server, in the political one. You might have to scroll up for a minute. I wonder how parents of trans people react when their child commits suicide. Like, really? Yeah, no, I honestly, it's surprise Pikachu face, Christian. It's literally surprise Pikachu face. The fact is that this is just the continued onslaught of bad theories being used as a way to attack trans people. This is no different than Ray Blanchard's, as she points out here, Ray Blanchard's autogynephile theory. This is no different than the calling trans women fetishists. It's again trying to co-opt psychological language as a way to harm trans women. Full stop. People like this need to be reported. People like this need to be absolutely and completely pushed back on. If you see a friend or a relative taking someone like this, do research. I told you about this in How to Find a Therapist video. You need to find people who are going to actually, and I mean this legitimately, actually work with your kid and find out if they're trans or not. I'm going to also be posting my Google Doc in there as a read-only. It has several links, including the Vox article explaining the onslaught of TERFs. It has 3 videos, one by Jesse Gender, another one by Cass Aris, and another one by ContraPoints, explaining the Irreversible Damages book, because I know that's going to fucking come up somewhere, and the gender critical thing, because I know a bunch of people are going to fucking come at this video saying, you're trying to hurt children. No, I'm not. I work with kids, and I fucking save them from people like you. Let me be super clear. These people cannot use actual argumentation. They can't actually use real data because everything goes against them. So they fabricate it. In every way, shape, or form, they fabricate it. Let's see what we got in chat. I just told my mom I was watching someone called Trans Girl Therapist, and she's now concerned I'll transition. Lol. Whoa. Wow, the contagion theory is real. I take back everything I said. Oh, no, not that one. It's the one with the gentleman on the front. Little hat, little beard. It was probably posted by me. Nope, that one, I have access to that one. I don't. Yeah, it's the story... detransitioner or trans man. Yeah. I mean, you guys get why this is so fucked, right? Like, this is literally people. Yeah, no, that's a face. That's a face palm for mom. Like, holy shit. Concern's a strong word. Like, is he a she? She's a lib. Oh, dear God. Did someone just... Oh, it's probably someone actually messaging me. Whatever, I don't care. I'm good in my cave, yeah, blah, blah. Yeah. TERF dog whistles are no different than Nazi dog whistles. Once you notice them, you notice all of them. Again, one of the reasons why these people are always wrong is because they never account for everything. For example, autogynephilia, as she says here, Doesn't account for lesbians, bisexuals, asexual, trans women. Again, if this was a paraphilia, they wouldn't necessarily need another person, like unless it was like a man to reify their gender. Oof. Big oof. Yeah. The problem I have with people like this is that here's how it goes. Hi, I'm a parent that's concerned that my kid is one of the transes. And instead of actually talking to someone who knows what they're talking about, I go to someone who looks like they know what they're talking about. And I could do this either for fallacious reasons because I want to convince my kid it's not true because I want to harm them, because I'm more concerned with their image than I am with their actual well-being. Or, and this is the big part, or they could genuinely be bamboozled by these motherfuckers. That's the worry I have. Bad faith actors as parents are always going to happen. I've talked about authoritarian parenting on the stream numerous times. No, they will rationalize this and they will see this person and see that this is doing some kind of harm. Oh, that's exactly the right one, Zena. Fucking pog. And this is why I love my fucking partner, because they are so good at stuff. So this is another one I'll put in there because I'm going to bury you motherfuckers and stuff. Detransition as conversion therapy. A survivor speaks out. So this person, for 7 years, I lived as a detransition woman. I believed that I had transitioned to cope with trauma and internalized sexism, that I had been trying to escape the stigma of being a butch lesbian in a homophobic society. This is how they fucking get you. I blogged and made videos under the name Crash Chaos Cat, or Crash for short, presented workshops, and helped organize in-person gatherings for detransition and re-identified women. I was profiled in the outline. Yeah, this is a former fucking TERF. And you know what? They're regretful as fuck. And you know what they talk about? These motherfuckers are a cult. I'll put this in the goddamn description.
At first it seemed to work, though it helped that my sense of gender had already shifted in a more female direction on its own before I ever considered myself detransitioned. I had long felt like a blend of trans-masculine and butch, but had spent most of my young adulthood living as a trans man, largely because I worried people would not understand my gender complexity. In my mid-20s, I started feeling more like a dyke and wishing I could be seen as a genderqueer female person. I had never lived as an adult butch woman and was curious about exploring that possibility. I didn't think of myself as detransitioning, more as exploring and experimenting with my gender.
Yeah. So after embracing radical feminism, I rejected my gender complexity in favor of declaring myself as a woman who had been so hurt so badly by sexism. Remember what we just saw from the detransitioners fucking video, or what this woman backs? Dude, it all fucking connects. It all fucking connects. And this is how it always goes.
Eventually though, my trans masculinity and gender queerness came back with a vengeance. At first I interpreted this as an episode of gender dysphoria, brought on by stress in my life. In the detrans women's community, gender dysphoria is separated from trans identity and treated like a symptom to be managed, much like ex-gays draw a distinction from experiencing same-sex attraction and identifying as gay. We rejected the whole concept of gender identity. Biological sex was real, but gender identity was false consciousness stemming from gender roles and sex stereotypes. We weren't trying to change gender identity as much as we were trying to eradicate it, privileging radical feminist theory over our internal sense of self. So I dutifully treated my re-emerging gender identities as delusions to work through. Living as a woman felt increasingly wrong, but I was terrified of giving up the life I had built as a detransitioned lesbian with a prominent role in the detrans women's community. I struggled with these feelings, doing my best to keep them in check, for 3 years.
Can you imagine the horror for this person? The sheer horror of being like, I know I'm trans. Not only does it smell like sunk cost, but I'll even call that out. I think this is totally reasonable. Yeah, this is literally brainwashing. Yeah, brainwashing, Patricia. I'm going to call you on that one. No, it's brainwashing. Yeah, it's literally convincing them that your gender identity is not real. And then, yeah, Sam Levy, this is indeed sad. This is what I've been working on this whole weekend. This is the shit that I've been talking about. These types of therapists, this type of therapist is the type of people that do very real harm in my profession. And this is exactly why mental health is political. You can never let anyone think otherwise. People that think mental health professionals are not political are either idiots or people who operate under a very old definition of who we are. And let me be clear, that definition was never true. Oh yeah, no, Tiamat's spitting fucking fire fucking tonight. That is terrifying. I can't imagine going through like, yeah, feel fucking for this person. Jesus Christ. Right? Like, listen to this. Talk about the fucking cult fucking, this is love bombing. We love you. It's okay. You're not really a trans man.
Multiple detransitioned women were threatened when I started making peace with my past transition and decided that it hadn't been as damaging as I had initially thought. I used to hate myself for having transitioned and felt deep despair about it. Sometimes I felt like transitioning had messed my life up so badly that I wanted to die. I gradually realized that transitioning in the past in no way prevented me from having the kind of life I wanted. I realized I still would have faced many of the same problems in my life even if I hadn't transitioned. I understood why I had gotten upset in the past, but when I put things in perspective, my past transition stopped seeming like a disaster and more like just another part of my life.
True.
This was an important positive shift for me, a huge relief. I no longer felt depressed or suicidal about transitioning. I was happy that my past was no longer causing me tremendous pain.
Do you know what this reminds me of? If you've ever seen like alienating parents, one of the things they'll do is they'll tell the kid, you know, all that pain you're feeling from the divorce, you're feeling really bad. Well, that's because of the other parent. Well, TERFs do something similar. You feel all that pain from not transitioning or detransitioning. That's just sexism. That's just all the damage that sexism and misogyny have done to you. When in reality, the person's suffering inside. And the problem is that balm of fucking telling someone what it is when it's not, it doesn't work long term. And this is why the issue of people being trans doesn't just go away. This is my problem. Being trans is real. It is a thing that exists. If this was somehow just a delusion, spoiler, our bodies wouldn't be built this way to accept hormones and be able to change. Our bodies wouldn't be able to be reconfigured in the ways that we do so. If this wasn't something that was very truly within human beings, we wouldn't have historical references to it from eons back. All right, I'll move back from the mic. Apparently I'm clipping. We'll try that now. But here's the thing. This person went through this because TERFs are by definition a cult. They are harmful. They are damaging. And the simple fact of the matter is that this woman, I believe, is one. That's not me trying to slander her or anything like that. And it's me not trying to make a statement as the rest of counselors. It's that I believe, as Jess, that this person is a monster. People like this, whether they think they're doing good or whether they think that they're doing this to screw the transes, it doesn't matter. Your intentions are meaningless. They only do is they change the scale of the fucking pain. Hi, Cat Jam. How are you? The fact of the matter is this. If it's unintentional, then you need to fix it because the data's out there and you're ignoring it. Or, much like that detransitioned person who retransitioned, you have to break out. But if you're doing this intentionally, create harm and to hurt trans people, guess what? That's a problem for me. And going forward, I'm going to keep an eye on Sasha's work. Because I think that it's something that needs to be observed, and I think it's something that needs to be talked about. And I'm going to look for any of these motherfuckers when they show up on YouTube or when they become a problem, because the fact is I work with trans kids. And I will fucking protect these people like a goddamn mother bear. There is no reason to stop kids. They go through a process that is long and arduous. One's with fucking doctors. One's with fucking psychologists, therapists, psychiatrists. There are so many professionals involved and so many parents and so much time and so much making sure of. It's one of the reasons why we make sure we try to understand this stuff early. Because if we can understand it early, if we can catch the stuff early, it gives us the time to do this. But transphobes like this lady want us to go through and stop from having any sort of real questions about this. They want to convince your kids that they're not transgender. And what that leads to is them dying. They tout arguments saying that after transition, people commit suicide. Spoiler alert, that's because of social conditions from people like this. Vosh has argued this. Contra has argued this. Demon Mama has argued this. Do I need to go on? But this is my wheelhouse. Fucking mental health professionals, and specifically another licensed professional counselor, same as me. I'm aware of the green Kachik. So yeah, I'm not speaking for counselors, but I damn well want to get the power to do so. Because the fact of the matter is, if I had the power, people like this wouldn't be able to practice, because I would look at them as a demonstrable harm. The fact that they're allowed to practice either means that the watchful eye of licensure hasn't found them, or there's a significant problem in mental health. I'm betting the second. This is why this channel exists. This is why I do what I do. Yeah, he's jamming. Does this make sense, folks? Like, are we on the same page? This woman's doing like the tour circuit on fucking like alt-right people. She supports a fucking like documentary called Dysphoric. These people will whine about girls transitioning. Again, why are they so worried about girls / trans men, non-binary people, AFAB people? Because it's an easy thing. Again, let's talk about it. Licensing laws do not always or even match up with codes of ethics. Fucking true, Hanging Wednesday. The reality of the fact is this. This whole thing is disturbing. And if you know anyone that works with someone like this, tell them to pull their kid out. Tell them to watch this video. Tell them to look up the data and the research, not just from fucking random bullshit. I want people like this to not have these videos. I want people like this to not work in my field. Every training I go to, I run into these people. And it's not because they're growing in numbers or intelligent. It's because they're pervasive and try to shut down any conversations. Oh, yeah. It's the concern trolling towards AFAB people and then the fear-mongering towards AMAB people, right? We're predators that are going to attack people in the fucking dressing room. But goddamn trans men, oh no, they're just girls that have been confused and bewildered by the transes. So this is how this goes. I am not going to stay quiet on this shit. Do you get me? Do you understand? This woman is behaving unethically, and I've demonstrated that in every conceivable way. You don't believe me? I'll link the APA Code of Ethics in the description. You don't think that she's wrong about rapid-onset gender dysphoria? I'll include the articles I'm using, including the Florence... Florence? Can't do names today. My brain just died. Oh, Florence Ashley, excuse me. Yeah, I'll include her entire piece of giant-ass research discussing this in the Sociological Review's monograms. Like, you don't understand the, did I say APA? It's ACA. Fuck APA. Fuck APA. Fuck psychologists, whatever. I don't even know those people. But no, in all honesty, yeah, ACA Code of Ethics 2014 outlines at least 3 ways this is unethical behavior. It's unethical because, and we will talk about this in depth, because 1, it is not based on real scientific data that has had consensus. It's based on bullshit. 2, when using these types of things, they don't tell them the risk that these kids could absolutely end up hurting themselves or end up miserable by not transitioning. And lastly, harmful practices. These people are no different than conversion therapy. If someone came into my office and asked for me to do conversion therapy, I would tell them kindly no. And if someone said, please fix my kid so they don't be a trans, I would also tell them no. I've dealt with parents like that, and they pulled their kid after the first time. Because I wasn't just immediately condemning them or questioning them like an interrogation. Do you guys get this? Like, does this make sense? I know it seems like I'm being alarmist, but I really need it to be super clear. This shit is not okay. And these people are now being platformed in areas that we're not going to see. Like, obviously, the one guy, the Republican, the fucking contrarian, it's another Matt Walsh. It's another asshole. Look at the people he platforms. Look at the discussions he has. Right? And this is why I'm bringing this to your guys' attention, because the reality is mental health stuff slips under the radar. You're not going to see Vosh talking about Sasha Yad unless she shows up on Joe Rogan. Because Joe Rogan's a giant transphobe. You're not going to see Sasha Yad show up on Demon Mama because, generally speaking, she's not that obvious. She's happening on a fucking puppetry channel. And honestly, at this point, Barnaby Dixon is kind of suspect. Full stop. I don't know what this person's politics are, but he seems very interested in platforming this woman. So I'm just going to say this very simply. Finish your stuff. It doesn't sound like you're being alarmist to me. This sort of toxicity is scarily everywhere. The more attention brought to how wrong TERFs talking bits are, the better. And this is why everyone needs to interview their therapist, as just mentioned in another video. Fucking true. Interview your therapist. Ask how they voted. If they voted for fucking Trump, spoiler, get the fuck out. That's the reality. Interview your therapist. Ask questions. What are their ethics? What are their views? Shit, I'm going to put in this end of this video, if I remember, I'm going to put into how to find a therapist. Because again, as I've stated before, 1, find therapists, ask questions, interview them. 2, all therapists, at least counselors, I've gone through their code of ethics. I did it at the beginning of this channel when our stuff looked way worse and my sound was way worse. But yeah, you know what? The argument still stands. The fact of the matter is that I still believe that to be a fucking counselor, you have to be a leftist or a liberal. To be otherwise means you are absolutely incongruent with our ethics. You cannot look a trans woman in the face supporting her and then immediately vote against her best interest. To do that, at best case scenario, is incongruent. At worst case, it means you're a fucking monster. So the reality of the situation is this. People like Sasha Ayan, MED, LPC are an issue. Oh yeah, absolutely, for people of color, for race. Yeah, no, I have so many stories about the EFT training. Oh, not just a monster, but a two-faced monster. Fucking true. So that's where we're going to end this. I need you guys to understand this. Ask your therapist questions. Get information. Get good results. Keep searching. I know it's frustrating. I know it's scary. But you cannot find people like this. And if your parents take you to someone like this, point it out to them. Give them the articles. If they don't want to listen, just don't talk. Do not be forced to talk yourself out of who you are. If you know who you are, if you were assigned male at birth, but you know you're a girl, you really know in every way. Yes, Shakachu face, Cat Jam. Like, if you know that, don't let these fuckers talk you out of it. They're doing it for political points. For every person they convince out, they get a free cookie and another dead kid. Knock this shit off. Now, again, if you like this video, please like, comment, and subscribe. Ring the bell. Seriously, we need all the help we can get here. I'm trying to get to 1,000 by the end of my birthday, which is the 16th. Sadly, I'm going to be 40. Erg. We're also trying to reach a camera goal. If you want, donate. It really helps. I'm the only person working in my household. It means a lot. You can donate at streamlabs.com/transgirltherapist/tip. I'm not a boomer, Cat Jam. Shut your fucking mouth. Goddamn. Not a fucking boomer. I'm a goddamn early millennial. 81. Fight me. It's in the Discord, Christian. If you want to join Discord, if someone wants to post the Discord in YouTube chat, it is it's the one that Vosh mentioned as a good example of a webcam. I will look at it real quick. It is the Logitech Brio UHD 4K webcam. It's like the best webcam you can get before you get into a like $1,000 professional one. Elder millennial or zillennial, thank you. Yeah, speaking as the other person that's that. Oh, fucking old motherfuckers we are. Jesus Christ. You turned into a Muslim and I turned into a girl. Shit happens weird, man. Holy fuck. Cat Jam is a doofus, but we love Cat Jam. Cat Jam, subscribe. Fucking God. Anyway, if you want to donate, streamlabs.com/transgirltherapist. It'll be in the fucking chats. Mods do the thing. You can also become a patron. Patreon.com/transgirltherapist. You can become a patron as low as $3. You can get up to $45. We have monthly meetings of discussions of things like mindfulness, self-care, maybe doing some gaming. We really want to get people in those upper tiers because there's a lot of cool ideas me and Zena have. Hell, we have one person in our chat, Quinn, who's really interested in actually like running a D&D game for one of the tiers. That's fucking pog. Right? Like, guys, it's never been a better time to fucking donate and support. I think what we're doing here is great. The fact that a bunch of alt-right fuckers like raided us at the beginning, posting dicks and yelling the N-word is kind of proof that they're threatened. They don't realize that. They think, oh, I'm just going to piss off the trans girl. But guess what? They telegraph this shit really well. So, yeah, it's a sign that I'm getting popular. Lucky fucking me. Is that Lily Orchard? Sorry, personal joke. No, that's her. She's a joke. Anyway, I'm gonna stop serving tea now. I need to drink some water and maybe a glass of water. And I'm gonna say this. I love you guys. Please like, subscribe, do all the stuff, donate, and yeah, I'll see you in the next one. All right? Bye.